Welcome back to another video. In this one, we're going to be talking about one of the most common and frustrating problems horse owners face, which is separation anxiety. Horses are herd animals. They can get really bothered when they're left alone by themselves in a pen or you're trying to ride them out by themselves. It can be challenging. I'm going to show you guys how to build your horse's self-confidence in this video. Let's get started. So there's some different areas or situations that can come up with that separation anxiety is going to be a problem. So one scenario is you want to take your horse away from the herd and you now need your horse to be with their leader, okay? So we're going to address this issue. Another area is your horse is going to be penned up by themselves. So you're going to take your horse and you're going to put them in a stall or a pen by themselves and hopefully they're okay with it. Then the third one we're going to talk about is you're going to leave your horse in a pen and take the other horses away from them. And can you keep them in the pen, have them not run through the fence, that sort of thing, and not be just stressed out and get ulcers and all that sort of thing because they're by themselves. So we're going to unpack all those different scenarios in this video. So one of the ways that we proactively build self-confidence is going to be, and it's also pretty easy, is tying a horse up by themselves, okay? So being able to just have this horse stand here patiently, and we've already worked with him today, he's done, and we do this at the end of the session, which is also important. If I just brought him out here fresh and tied him up, he'd probably be okay now, but when he first got here, he'd probably be dancing around, that sort of thing. But because he's already settled, he's in a good state of mind, he's relaxed, he's already moved his feet, he's nice and settled, now is a great time to practice teaching him to stand patiently. And what's great about this is, I don't know if you guys can see, he's pretty much by himself. We got another horse being rode in the arena right now. And so let's just pan over here. So we ride in this arena here, and you can see for our farm here, it's pretty easy to go from working in that space and just come let them stand tied before we put them away. We could put them away straight away, but I really like having them stand tied. It develops patience, and I increase how long I have them standing tied here as they get better at it. So it starts with 10-15 minutes, you know, just like tie them up, go get another horse out and then put them away. And then it turns into half an hour, a couple hours. And it kind of, you know, we usually start riding here about 8:30 a.m. and we're finished riding about 1. So the longest a horse would be here possible is if they were the first horse we rode, you know, then we're finished maybe 9:30ish. This is all guesstimates, averages, but 9:30. And then they'd be tied up and turned out right before 1 o'clock before we take a lunch break. So that would be kind of a long time. And that would be enough to me. I mean, if they'll stand there that quiet for 3 or 4 hours, they'll stand quiet for longer than that if you needed them to. Yeah, and so the round pen for me is a great place to do that at. My advice to you is if you're at home, even if you're riding, you know, your one horse, have a place that you take the horse to. It could be a pen if you don't want to tie him, or it can be a place to tie him, but and this is something you have to do regularly. You can't just do this once and be like, oh, I fixed it. It's something that you do regularly. And when they're in this regular mode of having kind of a structure and a schedule, they get used to the routine and they get pretty good at it. And so Pops has kind of gotten into the routine here. He's been here 5 or 6 weeks now, and he's getting pretty used to this. So at home, get a pattern of having a place to pin your horse up by themselves, developing that self-confidence. So a couple of the horses we're going to use in this video is actually my horse and my wife Emily's horse. They are just super pair bonded. These horses lived together for like 5 or 6 years. They don't anymore, but they previously lived together and they were super attached. We had to separate them for a different reason. Basically, she gets fat by looking at hay and he needs lots of hay, and so kind of had to compromise with that. But anyways, they get super attached. So what we're going to do now is we're going to haul them over to a facility. We're going to put them in a pen next to each other, and then we're going to separate them. And I think that's going to instigate some of this separation anxiety that we talked about, especially for him. Now, one of the things that I think is critical to understand is when horses are separated as weanlings, it's critical that it's done properly, okay? So what I think happens a lot of times when horses are bred and raised at a certain place, they put the horse up for sale, the horse sells, and then boom, it's separated. Like literally put in a trailer and hauled away. I think that's one of the things that happened with this horse. Another scenario is they separate them by putting the foal in a stall and separating the foal from the mare, and they just do it one day cold turkey. And I think that this causes much stronger emotional response in the horse than if they had been separated in a more organic, natural way. Okay, so let me give you another scenario. One of the ranches that I love to buy my horses from, the ranch that she's from, is Circle Bar Ranch. And the layout that they have is they have this huge pasture that the mares and foals are raised in. Every morning they come up to a barnyard where there's water and they get fed in the morning, okay? They get fed some grain in the morning. There's maybe a dozen foals, 15 foals, something like that, and then all the mares. And when it's getting time for them to be separated, what she'll do is she'll kick the mares out and close the gate, and all the weanlings are up in the pen that they've always been in all the time. And they're with all their buddies. So they don't really know any different, okay? But now they can't just go to their mom immediately when they want to. There's a gate in between. So most of the time the mares hang out by the gate there, and the foals stay there, and they kind of mill around. And they'll do this for a couple of hours, and then they'll turn them all out again. Next day, same thing. And then pretty soon the mares start to wander off and go eat, and they start to not care that the weanlings are in this pen by themselves. But the weanlings are all together with their buddies in a pen where they're used to. And so they do this over time. I don't know exactly how long they do this for, but it's a very natural, organic process. And one of the things that I've loved about circle bar horses, and I've trained about 15 to 20 of them at this point, and all of them share this quality, which is they are very okay being by themselves. They don't have this unnaturally strong emotional response to separation anxiety. And so that is a really helpful thing for me as a trainer and an owner, is to be able to have a horse that I can put them by themselves, take them away by themselves, leave them in a pen by themselves, all these different scenarios. And so one of the things that I would like to stress from this video is, depending on how your horse was separated as a foal, it maybe will determine the level of difficulty that you're facing with this separation anxiety thing. So let's get these two loaded up, and we're going to put them in a scenario that might be a little bit tough. It might be a common one if you take your horses to shows or a clinic, and we'll see how they do. So I want to talk about another scenario that pops up that I get asked about, which is an owner that wants to take two horses to a show or a clinic. Because when you take two horses to a new place, they're going to be more attached to each other than they are at home, because there's a built-in stress level that's at this new place. And so this is where doing this scenario that we're doing today, which is taking two of our horses that know each other to a new place, is going to heighten that sense of things. We're doing this for the video here so you guys can kind of see us working through it. And our horses hopefully aren't going to be like terrible, but you'll see the program they would take. But my point is, you want to proactively do that. You don't want to just go to the show and hope it works out. You want to set up this scenario deliberately and practice taking them to places and having them separate each other. You might need two people to handle the horses at different times, but it's just about teaching them to find relief away from each other and maybe making it a bit uncomfortable near each other. So we're going to see if we can set up that scenario today, and hopefully it helps you guys out.
We heard Ted has some issues at shows with separation. What exactly happens that you would like to fix?
So when I take him to a horse show, it's usually by himself. He gets hauled by himself. So I take him away from the farm, which is typically fine. But at the show, he will connect to whatever horse is in the stall next to him or behind him or anything like that. And these horses are horses he doesn't even know. And the stalls are always almost solid walls. So they're boards with like an inch or two visual in between each board, but all the way up as high as they can go. So he will connect with that horse on either side, even through that little bit of vision he has, or putting his nose all the way up the top. And then when a fellow competitor at the show takes that horse away, he freaks out in his stall, calling, bucking, rearing, kicking the walls is one of his big go-tos. He'll kick the walls, and it takes him just a really long time to settle. And at a show, I can't ask someone else to bring their horse back so that I can settle my horse.
Okay, so we got the horses unloaded here. We're at a farm that's only a few miles from our house that we come to a lot for clinics and things. It's called the Horse First Farm. And what we're going to do is we're going to put them in pens. And this is kind of, again, a scenario. You're coming to a show, you're coming to a clinic, something like that. And we're going to put these horses in next to each other, let them get settled, and then we'll separate them, and we'll show you guys kind of how we deal with getting them comfortable with that. Let's go ahead and we'll step away from the horses. So one of the things that I think people kind of miss a little bit with this idea of separation anxiety is our horses are well trained and have a good foundation. They get used a lot. We ride them a lot. So if they're with us, they're pretty good. meaning that, like, if Emily and I took our horses and we just went and played with them, they would be focused because they have confidence in their leader, okay? Which is important. That's the starting point. You got to have that first, okay? And we're going to show you guys how to do that in this video. This part is now applying those same techniques that you use to build confidence in the leader, but developing self-confidence, which means I'm going to try to take Sage away from Ted and leave him in the pen. And again, I think the way this horse was raised, he was not raised with a herd before we owned him. Now, we bought him, I think he was 3 or 4 years old, but he was in a pen by himself, and I think there was a separation thing. So anyways, he has a pretty strong issue with this. Now, we work with him, so it's not that bad for us because we kind of know what to do in that thing. But there's not a lot of times where we deliberately set up this exact scenario where we have the two horses that are very bonded and then we're going to take them away from each other. But this is a hard scenario, and so this is why I wanted to do it. The other horses that we have at our farm are just not that super attached, so they're already kind of too far along in training to get anything good out of them, or anything bad out of them, I should say. So what we're going to do here is we'll let them get settled, and I'm going to take Sage away from Ted. Actually, I'll have Emily do it. Have Emily take Sage away from Ted, and you guys will see his reaction to it. And if we were to leave him to his own devices, I honestly would not be surprised if he jumped out of the pen. Okay, I think he would go to that level of being bothered. We'll see. We'll kind of see what his response is, and then we'll go from there. But I just wanted to give him a little time to kind of be connected. So you can see right now they're eating grass, everything's happy, and now we're going to instigate some challenges. Okay, so Emily, if you could go and grab Sage for me, and you can just take her kind of like you were taking her to the arena. And one of the things that I have in my mind right now is I'm going to see if I can get Ted to just be settled by himself, okay? And basically, if he gets a little fired up, I'm going to interrupt that thought, and then we'll have Emily bring Sage back, and we'll see how that goes. So already you can see Ted's state changed. He's already getting upset. We'll let it play out for just a second, but not too long. Because I do believe he would jump out of the pen if he had. He's pretty good at jumping. So now you see I come over here. He right away, he comes and acknowledges me, looking for relief. And now we're going to make this mental state a little bit uncomfortable. So again, I don't want to, you guys got to see it in the video. I don't want to leave him there too long. Now you also see him settling a little bit because I'm in here with him. So there's already this aspect of confidence in his leader that's here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give him some space, and you can see he's kind of thinking about that mare. So I'm going to add a little pressure to that right here and ask him to just get hooked on me, just inside this pen. See, again, he looked over to the mare. So I got to time my cues with this when he's thinking about her. Now, if you haven't already taught your horse all these yields, you would have already wanted to do that. So you see him reconnecting with me. So very quickly, he's okay with this. So I'm just going to get this a little bit stronger here, where he's connecting with me. And I don't work with Ted. I can't remember the last time I worked with him. I rarely do anything with him. And so it's not like, oh, he knows me really well, and so he's connecting with me. This would probably work, actually, if it was Emily in here. See, I'm tapping him there because he didn't follow me when I walked over here. So I'm asking him to use his brain, to think, to get settled. He just took a deep breath there. I'm just saying, hey, just be okay here. But until he can get really settled with just me, I'm not going to turn him loose. Okay? But this is an example of self-confidence. Now, I can't babysit him in here all the time. So eventually, I got to be able to turn him loose again and have him be okay with that. Now, I think what I'm going to do for timeliness, I feel like he's fairly connected. So you can see if I walk over here, he's staying with me pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the lead rope over his back. Now, I wouldn't normally do something like this. But I'm kind of bridging that gap of him being totally loose. So if he starts to get upset again, now he's already looking away there, so I'm going to add some pressure there. Now I am tapping him with the stick because it has to be effective enough. If you aren't effective with that pressure, it could take way too long and they'll spend too much time being upset. Okay. Or it will just not work, you know, and you'll be like, oh, Ryan, this strategy was horrible. It didn't actually work. You have to be effective enough with that pressure. And in order to be effective, you have to do enough pressure without scaring them, do enough pressure that matches their intensity level. So he's pretty focused on Sage and wanting to be over there, okay? So he's refocused on me, so I'm gonna step back out here. And I like that, he followed me. You can see then he immediately got upset. Gonna ask him to reconnect here. Put a little pressure on him. A little bit bigger correction, a little bit longer this time. Good. We'll just ask him to get settled again. Now, let's say, so you can see this is, you know, kind of working with him here. If your horse was worse than this, you might need, you know, again, you need to practice this at home. Taking him to a new place with that horse is a really the hard level of this, the hard version of this. So you can break this down into as many little steps as you need to, where you're at home. Even if you were here, I could just have Sage, I could put them maybe one pen in between them, right? So instead of having them right next to each other. And, you know, a lot of people right away go, well, I don't have that set up at home. You have to sometimes make these setups. You have to figure it out. You have to problem solve. You have to set up scenarios where you can, the situation is what we call set up for success. It's achievable, okay? So you have to set up a pattern that you can duplicate where the problem arises, but you can work through it, okay? And then you might have to do it a few days in a row. And it's inconvenient and it's kind of a pain, but you got to do it, okay, in order to get through it. And separation anxiety is, again, a natural instinct for a horse. And so and again, it's amplified by how that horse was separated, how it was raised, okay? You have to proactively practice this. You have to do this regularly. You can't just do this once in a while, okay? So you got to find a way to make it part of your routine to have this horse by himself. Tying him up at the round pen like I do. Feeding time is a great time to do it. If you got a horse like Ted that gets real nervous by himself, take this horse away from the herd into a pen by himself and let him get fed. That's a great way to set up that scenario, okay? Because it has to be regularly. So a lot of times training sessions like this are hard for people to do regularly. You know, for me, we're doing this all the time anyway, so it's not hard to set this up. But for, you know, people that aren't, you know, don't always have their truck and trailer hooked up and that sort of thing, I understand that it's hard to do. So my advice would be to set up a scenario at home where at feeding time, you separate those horses. So they get something positive, they get their feed, but they get used to being by themselves. And at first, you know, it might take them a half an hour or so to eat their feed, and then it'll eventually get less and less. So you can see Ted's head kind of coming down here. He's kind of settling. Now I'm going to go ahead and step out again. Now, it's interesting. That time he whinnied, but he didn't turn away. Okay, now I might walk over here. And again, this is establishing a starting point. So I'm pretty happy with this. Now I'm going to leave that, when I'm doing training, I'm going to leave the lead rope on for now. Probably the next step would be I'd take the lead rope off and leave the halter on. I wouldn't walk away from him in this scenario and like go to lunch or something. This is just for training. I wouldn't leave a horse in a pen with a halter on so they don't hang it up on something when I'm not around. But I'm doing this so that I could very quickly get to his mind and redirect him if I needed to. Now, when I walked in there that last time, he was at liberty and I was able to influence him without that, but no, I like that there. Oh, that's a big one. That's a real big one. So I think you guys can see this is one scenario that would help out. There is another scenario that can happen where you can have a horse that gets nervous just inside a pen. So there's like, think about it like this. Where's the relief spot? Where's the hot lava? So for him, the hot lava was when I had to go back in the pen. That was hot lava, okay? When he's in the pen by himself, that's where the relief is, okay? Now he's going back to eating, so this is if you guys can see this in the video here. But yeah, so that's a big win for Ted there. But let's say you had the opposite. Let's say your horse is okay out here, but you put them in a stall and then they lose their mind in a stall, okay? In that scenario, I would do the opposite. I would take them out of the stall and I would say the hot lava is out here, put the pressure on, drive the hindquarters around, back them up, side pass, do something quickly, put them back in the stall and then turn them loose in there, okay? So wherever you want the relief to be, that's where there's no pressure. Whatever the horse wants to be, that's where we add pressure. And what's very easy for humans to do is to take what we want them to do and we make that uncomfortable by overexposing them to it. Meaning just turning them loose in there, not doing anything, not supporting them in any way. So you kind of have to reverse engineer these things. Sometimes, you know, if the horses are finding relief with each other and you want them to find relief away, where's the hot lava then? The hot lava is when those two horses are together, put some pressure on, do something to instigate some movement, take them away from each other and let them get relief. So we're going to show you guys a few more scenarios in this video. Let's keep going. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys my 3 go-to techniques if a horse is becoming anxious or upset, how I'm going to help settle them. These 3 techniques you're mostly able to do them in a small space, which is important. You're able to do them very quickly. You're able to do them with minimal tools, which is also important. And 2 of them have a good aspect of bending the rib cage and yielding the hindquarters, which is really critical for this. Okay, so the first one is I'm going to go to his hindquarters. Now, so you need to have taught this horse this already when things are going well. Okay, so I'm yielding the hindquarters, but there's a secret to this. I'm yielding the hindquarters until right there, she caught me with her other eye. That tells me she switched mental states and she all of a sudden put effort into my idea. So whenever I am working with a horse asking for a specific thing, you have to be able to answer the question, what does the horse need to do to win this game? So for her to win the hindquarter yield game, she has to look at me with the new eye. Okay, and if she doesn't, I'm going to put more pressure. If she tries to go forward, I'll lift up right there. Boom. She caught me with this eye. She wins that game. Okay, so I'm using the rope as much as I need to. I'm driving with the tail of the rope here. I won't let him go forward. I want him to pivot on a front foot, and I want him to just shift that nose and really commit. That tells me she's giving me 100%. She's getting committed to it. Otherwise, they can they're just doing it a little bit. They can be involved, but not committed, and that's not going to cut it, okay? So make sure you can do that on both sides of your horse. The next thing, sometimes, again, you're in a small space. So again, the scenario where your horse is getting upset and you very quickly need to do something to interrupt it, backing him up, okay? But when you're doing this, I'm going to back them up with some energy, right? So I'm going to put a feel on the halter, and then I might add some rhythm with my lead rope, okay? You need some go-to strategies, and the hindquarter would be my first choice. Then the backup, and then lastly, we're going to do a side pass, okay? The backup, again, is very simple. It's putting pressure here and then driving here. Now, if the horse is really committed to running you over, like they're really bothered, like this is a very high level intense scenario, you might have to actually lift your hand up and just make this uncomfortable by having your head up in the air like this. This can really get their attention. I don't like to back horses up like that, but every now and again, I need something that really just gets their attention off of whatever it's on. And by lifting their head up in the air, that kind of helps them get more of a pattern interrupt, okay? So, but again, normally, or like 99% of the time, I'm backing horses up like this. Put a feel on the halter, and you can see how good she is at that, okay? So she kind of knows that one. And again, you need strategies that you can apply in a small space, like a barn aisle or something like that, you know, depending on the scenario you're in. And then it needs to be hard enough of a maneuver that the horse gets committed right away. It can't take too long. You can't bring them out and circle them for 15 minutes. That isn't going to work. It's that you will allow your horse to be wrong for too long if you try that. You need to think about, you're doing these as a pattern interrupt. So the 2 things that are going to get you to quit doing any of these when your horse starts to get connected to show you they're putting effort in. Number 1, they have to answer that question, what do they need to do to win this game? Which is doing the movement correctly, okay? Second thing is they need to start moving their feet slowly under a little bit of pressure. So you're putting a little pressure on, and they go from when they're reactive, when they're anxious, their feet are going to move quickly. The big secret is with horses, stick with it until the feet start moving slowly. That's when you take that pressure away. That's when you know they're getting more left-brained, okay? So my third technique is going to be this side pass, okay? Again, you'd already have taught this, so I'm going to put a little feel on the halter. I'm going to drive in the rib cage, and we're going to side pass, okay? Now, the intensity level that you do this at is going to depend on how committed your horse is to being bothered and upset about the other horses being away. So make sure you taught these 3 techniques before you put your horse in a bind in those tough situations so that you have some go-to plans to fall back on. So let's say you're not at the point where you're ready to leave the horse by themselves. You're wanting your horse to be connected with you, but while you're trying to work with your horse, they're connected to the other one. I want you to do this. You're going to do this technique that we're about to show. We're going to bring our two horses together, and we're going to do a hind quarter yield right near each other, and then we're going to turn and we're going to walk away. So I'm going to walk that way, and Emily, you walk this way. We're not going to go very far. And the goal is that on a loose line, our horses stay focused on us. If he looks away, you need to say, Ryan, we need to come back. And then we're going to bring the horses back together quickly, very efficiently. Hot lava again when they're by each other, and then we'll walk them away again. Now, the further away they get, the harder it's going to be, especially if they go around a corner where they can't see each other. So you got to build to this, but you have to establish a starting point where you're finding some success and let it happen more gradually. So we're right by each other. Let's come over here just a little bit. And as close as they can be, and this actually works even better riding, where you're riding them, and what you can do is you can play this game. Actually, we'll show it. So I'm just going to refer to it right now, but we haven't videoed this yet. But you're going to ride them, and if we were both sitting on them, my goal would be to catch Emily's horse's tail with her nose to his tail, and her job would be able to catch my horse's tail with his nose. So you're riding a circle trying to catch each other, but everybody's doing it, so you're just going around and around, and then you ride away. Then bring them back, play that game again, and then ride them away. Okay, and that's another powerful strategy. So let's go ahead and we're just going to do this hind quarter yield with them right by each other. As you can see, our horses are really connected with us right here. Okay, now we're going to walk away from each other. And then they get relief as they get separated. Okay. Now, what I'm doing, now Ted started to look back, so let's bring them back together quickly. And you can even like side pass him over here. Now I make this uncomfortable. And you can set up this scenario in any way you want to. The gist of it is, when they're by each other, it's got to be a little bit uncomfortable, putting some pressure on. You can see how much noisier and busier we are. Okay, now separate them, walk away. And so again, that doesn't have to take very long. You see how quickly we do this. And then each time you can kind of build how far away, but it has to feel easy when you separate them. If it feels hard when you're separating them, like you might be going too far too fast, okay? So build the distance gradually. And so as I'm doing this, I'm observing Emily's horse. He's looking forward. He's not looking back to Sage. Everything's good here. Sage is staying connected with me. We can even build distance here where we start to stand away from them a little bit and give them a little more responsibility. So when you're building self-confidence in a horse, the more distance you have with you and the horse, the more it's their self-confidence. The closer you are, the more the horse is thinking of you as the leader, and they're doing it because you're there, okay? This is true also riding. So if you're riding on a loose rein, you're developing self-confidence in that horse riding. If you pick up the reins and you're asking the horse to navigate through something scary, you're asking them to respect you more as the leader, be with you because the leader's there. So there's different skills. So you want both, okay? At the end of the day, you want both skills. But it's important to deliberately practice distances on the ground if you're trying to build self-confidence, and loose rein riding under saddle to build that, okay? So I think I'm kind of good with showing you guys this. I think these two horses are kind of getting it. You guys get the idea, and we'll carry on. So real quick, we wanted to just show you guys this pattern under saddle here. And yeah, Emily and I haven't ridden bareback in a while, so don't be too hard on us in the comments, okay? You guys can be pretty cruel sometimes. So my goal is to catch Emily's horse's tail, and her goal is to get her horse's nose to catch his tail. So we're making it really uncomfortable for them to be by each other. Keep going, Emily. So here we go. Let's do this at a trot if possible. And it's just bringing our life up. Come on. I'm winning. Get up here, Emily. Go, 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 go. I'm winning. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Put pressure on him. Go, go, go. It's about the effort. Pressure, pressure, pressure. Pressure, pressure, pressure. Almost there. Okay. And now ride away. And so we get quieter. There's less pressure. And you guys can see the horses can then get relief riding away. Now, when you first do this, it's not like you have to go super, super far away. My horse just took a deep breath. She's looking over there. You can see this wasn't hard for our horses. They see us as the leader here in the saddle. But I think it makes it very obvious the point. There was more pressure over here in this circle when they were by each other where they wanted to be, and then they get relief away from each other. So you would do this several times and you would grow that distance that they could be. Now, let's say she whinnies back to him right now. She thinks back, so I say, okay, Emily, let's get back. So right away, very efficiently, get back to each other. Luckily, my horse has a smaller trot than her horse. Work, 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 so you're pressuring them. So you want to just kind of draw on the rein a little bit, bump with your legs a little bit, just generally make it a little bit uncomfortable. Pressure, hot lava is what we call it here. And then right away, she even bit him right there. She's like, get away from me. This is no fun by you. So Sage is kind of getting the, understanding the assignment here. And so again, if they're really sweet on each other like that, you can make it uncomfortable for them to be by each other. The relief is away. This is a great strategy to help your horse get more comfortable away from the other horse under saddle. I hope you guys can see that it's possible to have a horse that can stand by themselves or be taken away from the herd, but it does take regular handling. So pick a program that is going to be doable by you on a regular basis, not something that you do once a month or once a year, something that's happening in your kind of regular everyday handling, like separating them during feed time or tying them up to a fence, something like that, and just practice it, and you'll be really glad you did when you need to take that horse away from the other one. So hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.